This is going to be my first replay with commentary on how to play Fiddlesticks. This is a game that went fairly well. I'll play with the idea of recording and commentating the game where I did poorly, just to go over my decision making and how it could have been different. What I've been doing this season with everybody starting bot side is I just start at the enemy buff, and I let my mid and top laner know that that's where I'm going to be, so that if I get into some trouble, they can help me out. On Fiddlesticks, I start a pink ward in one pot, because Fiddle doesn't really need pots. The first one's just kind of nice to be ticking while you're taking the first or second buff, but they're not necessary, so the pink ward I should actually place in this brush behind his red buff. I just was not thinking about it at the time. I was messing with OBS too much to be looking at it. So I ask them to not make it obvious that they came from his red buff, and they're usually pretty bad at that, but it's okay. I don't even need this much help as much as they're getting me. I just asked them for like one auto attack each, but they help me more, which is nice. It gets me to my blue buff faster. Usually the enemy jungler doesn't even recognize it's happening. So right here, my mid laner, who's actually my duo, stole experience, so it really slowed me down this game. Not really, but I only got... there's that pink ward I was talking about. So I'm still level 1 because he stole that experience. So in that situation, had I hit level 2, I'd have taken Fear and ran up and ganked Jarvan, but since I didn't, I have to run over to my blue. And I just take one of the small creeps at blue buff first, just so that I get my E up, the Bouncing Crow. And hit level 2. So right here, I'm just going to take that little guy, hit level 2, and then proceed to take the buff from there. I won't hit level 3 off of this, so I'm just going to continue to go through my clear. The waves are pushing, but on Fiddlesticks, he's a good early ganker, but obviously his level 6 is absurd. So a lot of times I'll just try to hit level 6 as fast as possible. That includes a lot of counter jungling. If their jungler's active or shows up in a lane and I'm on the opposite side of the map, I'll try to just counter jungle the opposite side of his map and set him behind. Right here, my Poppy told me that Jarvan used his flash and his ignite, so that's obviously a good time to camp a lane, because at 3 minutes, burning flash and ignite is setting yourself up for failure, especially with how hard he's pushing. So there, Pantheon walked over the pink ward I put down, so Malzahar, who's my duo, is going to go try to kill him, and I think he fails pretty spectacularly here if I recall correctly, but it's alright. Just even messing with him and throwing him off his route, yeah, that's a fail. But just throwing him off his route, throwing him off his timing helps out, because the more time... But the more time he spends not taking camps, is the more time he spends not leveling. So by the time Pantheon actually gets back to jungling, I'll have a full level advantage on him. And Fiddlesticks is one of the most powerful level 6s in the game. So that's why a lot of times I'd end up just trying to power farm. Like, I could have ran and held mid, but I'm just trying to get all of my buffs secured and get through my full clear. I typically take Chilling Smite. Sometimes I'll take trackers if I feel we really need the vision, but I usually just end up sticking with yellow trinkets. The blue trinkets are nice, but I don't like that they can be cleared, especially because I try to keep objectives warded as much as possible, and the enemy obviously can see and clear the blues, so I typically keep the yellows. If I switch to trackers, then I'll take a sweeper, but I usually work well around enemy vision. Most of the time, if you walk over their ward, it's too late. So here I want to make sure that my lane knows to focus Soraka, because if you focus an ADC in a duo lane with Soraka, odds are you're not going to kill them like that. The Corki focus Twitch. And we didn't get the kill, obviously, but we got the Soraka exhaust. So we're working on timing summoners, which is really important, timing summoner spells, so that you know what lanes are the most susceptible lanes to be ganked. I'm pretty sure I stick around right here, and I think we get some more summoners. Yeah, the Thresh hooked the Twitch, but didn't, thankfully didn't go in with his Q, because he would have died there. My duo could have been flashed on and auto-attacked. I don't know why Zillion didn't. So here, I want us to focus Soraka, get her flash. So now we have her flash and her exhaust. So with me being almost to level 5, I can come back down to level 6 and get a pretty guaranteed kill on Soraka. Time to go back. One of the things I do poorly sometimes is not go back early enough on Fiddlesticks because the sustain is so good. But what you have to keep in mind is that you're not getting full experience from jungle camps until you finish at least your machete item, or until you build the machete, until you build into your smite. I'm sorry, into your smite item. That's the point that you are getting full experience. And they did that so that the double jungling kind of went away, so that laners weren't starting at a camp and getting level 2 off of it. You can only get level 2 off of it if you have a jungle item, and then the experience is split between both jungle items. So right here, I'm pretty sure I have a kill on J4, but he pretty expertly gets away from me, so I'm fairly certain he had a ward. I'm not even sure where he went here. He had to have EQ'd past that tower, which is pretty impressive that I didn't catch any vision of him. So, essentially wasting a lot of time here being still level 4, because I've given Pantheon plenty of time to catch up without... So, getting the Summoner's bot was nice, but 2 ganks with no kills sets me pretty behind. Pantheon's still level 4 as well with less farm than me, so he's being even more inefficient than I am. But that's definitely a point where Pantheon could have taken advantage. Given that he hasn't been really showing in lanes, he should have an experience advantage on me. But he's probably just not that good. So finally hit level 5. Still looking for places to gank, but also keeping in mind that I want to hit 6 as soon as possible. It gets a little rough after you don't have blue buff, but auto-attacking the camps gives you some mana back. As far as build goes, you want to make sure to prioritize getting the Zonias right after your jungle item. The new jungle item, the Runic Echoes, is really good on Fiddlesticks. The old one, the Rune Glaive, was not, and actually I just skipped jungle items altogether on him back then. But the Runic Echoes is really nice. The movement speed works great with his ult, and the Runic proc, what's the word I'm looking for? The Runic Echo burst damage works really well with his ult as well. And again, the movement speed just works so well with keeping up with somebody after you've ulted on top of them. So I'm looking to hit in level 6 here real quick, and typically you never want your ult to be up when you're Fiddle, essentially. Like, you live and you breathe and you work your life around his ultimate. Because it's so game-changing. And the more seconds you spend not using it, or the more seconds until your next one is up. So anytime my ult is up on Fiddlesticks, I pretty much skip farming and get right to trying to find a place to use it. Even if I'm using a tower dive, Fiddlesticks, even with how squishy he is, he's a really, really, really good tower diver. And I actually get cooldown boots on Fiddlesticks with extortion, Jesus Christ. With I can't think of the enchantment, but it decreases the cooldown on your summoner spells, and you get the flash cooldown down to 250 seconds, because your flash ult is another. You're working around 2 cooldowns essentially on Fiddlesticks. You're working around your ult cooldown, and then you work around your flash cooldown, where you can make plays, you can make bigger plays, and that flash is just ridiculous, the amount of gap close you have on Fiddlesticks when your flash is up, which is why I try to, if I go back and have enough for a needlessly large rod, I'll buy it just because of the power spike involved. But if I don't, getting the cooldown boots and the enchantment on them is so key, because the more often your flash is up, the more you can make big plays and go deep. And flash just gives you some leeway, because sometimes Fiddlesticks ult can be hard to time, and if you have flash, then it just gives you that much more leeway on actually landing on top of somebody. And there's definitely some fail ults that are pretty embarrassing, and then some that would have been embarrassing if you didn't have flash, which are nice to kind of save yourself with. And with all the cooldown on summoner spells, you can actually surprise the enemy sometimes with how often it's up, because not a lot of people go cooldown boots with the summoner spell cooldown reduction on them. It's really making me mad. I can't think of the name of that enchantment. It's not extortion. It starts with EX. Here, Zillion. Zillion's a tough one to gank because of his speed boost and his ult. Malzahar and I have to time his suppression and my fear and silence perfectly in order to make sure that Zillion has no window to ult himself. This is just good timing. They should have known I was down there. And Malzahar canceled his ult early, otherwise that was a double kill for us. So more power farming, because just like most people with good ultimates, the next power spike is level 11. So with no enemies showing, you can kind of think there might be a dragon, but our team isn't exactly in a position to try to contest dragon. Fiddlesticks is really good at stealing dragon with if you can ult over the wall and then fear and silence the enemy. You can actually smite through fears and silences, but people typically panic when they're getting ulted on and feared and silenced and everything else. So you can cause enough mayhem that you can win the smite war often. So ulting over into objectives that the enemy team has taken is one of my favorite things to do. I've had some pretty badass 1v5 pentakills in the Baron Pit and stuff like that. Right here, Soraka lets me know that she knows I'm there. They have Tribush warded. So word to the wise and jungling in general, don't ever let a jungler know that you know they're there. If you know that they're there, let them waste their time. Even bait it a little bit, because you can move the second you see them move, and you can make them waste time. That's just time wasted hitting level 11. That's time wasted not ganking top and mid. I never made it up there to gank Jarvan after his flash because I spent too much time trying to make something happen bot. I hate Soraka so much I try to kill her. But never, ever, 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 ever let somebody know that you know they're there. Just ping your ally, tell your ally not to tell them anything, and let them waste as much time as you can. Try to make them think they have a chance. Right here, Thresh lands a great hook. We even get the Twitch flash, which you get a lot of panic flashes out of Fiddlestick ults, which is really funny, especially with Blue Smite, because you can usually catch right back up to them after they flash. There's nothing more satisfying than getting both summoners and a flash, or getting both summoners and a kill out of it. So right there, I got to finish my jungle item, and I'm just going to wait for the cooldown boots. And cooldown, I'm starting to toy with some more cooldown-centric Fiddlesticks rune pages right now. I run ability-powered quintessences, mixed pen reds, and scaling armor yellows with scaling cooldown blues. And the scaling armor is just because armor early on Fiddlesticks isn't important. He doesn't need it for his jungle clear. And I'm actually toying with running AP reds instead of mixed pen reds, because Fiddlestick's passive reduces the enemies, nearby enemies affected by your spells, magic resist is reduced by 10. Runes are obviously for the early game, so you don't often need much more than 10 magic resist reduction. So I don't know that the mixed pen is as important as straight up AP. So I'm actually experimenting with that rune page, but the rune page I've been running for 2 seasons, essentially, is the AP quints, the mixed pen reds, and scaling cooldown blues with scaling armor yellows. And then masteries, I actually run man, I'm drawing a blank on so many things right now. It gives you a burst of movement if you do 30% of their health inside of 2 seconds, which is great for Fiddlesticks, especially when you're ulting on top of an enemy team and they scatter in multiple directions. Getting the burst of movement speed from the person you focus first actually allows you to catch up to the second or third person while your ult is still active, which is super clutch. I've gotten a lot of kills, like a lot of triples, where people spread in 3 different directions because it's Storm Raider Surge. It's called Storm Raider Surge. And then here, this was a fail. I had to flash to catch that lantern in time, and it almost worked. If I'd have been paying attention to what's happening above me, we would have had that Soraka caught out, and we would have gotten out clean. So that was totally my fault, and I burned a flash getting into the lantern. So that's another place I failed. Distortion, not extortion. Distortion. That's the name of the enchantment. So I know I said you got to focus on Zonias, and had I ever had enough at one point for Needles Through Large Rod, I would have gotten Zonias before I got the cooldown boots, and just at some point gotten tier 1 boots. But just given the time I died versus the time I had to back and stuff like that, it was just what made sense. Like always make sure you're trying to maximize power spikes, even if they're small power spikes like cooldown. Getting up to almost 20% cooldown without having blue buff just gets my ult up that much faster and gets my flash up that much faster. So Fiddlesticks, his base damages are great, so you're doing damage even if you don't have the needlessly large rod items. Like even with 95 AP, I can pretty much one combo anybody if I surprise them with my ult. So, but Zhonya's is absolutely 100% no question the next item. There are very few circumstances I can imagine where you don't go Zhonya second. In fact, there are 0 that I don't go Zhonya second. Like Abyssal Scepter might be nice in against some teams if they have a lot of magic damage or something like that, but Zhonya's is so game changing. The second you get your Zhonya's, you can tower dive and tank the tower until you're one shot, and then Zhonya's and hope your team finishes them off. Zhonya's just built for Fiddlesticks. So the faster you get that, the faster you become almost invincible. So we're not hyper carrying this game. We're getting assists. We're getting our lanes fed, and we're bringing some utility to the team fights. That's the Fear is one of the longest CCs in the game, and that AoE silence just absolutely wreaks havoc. Especially with the Malzahar on the team. There's 2 AoE silences, and that really throws off the enemy team's timings on abilities, and it is very disruptive for Zilean too, because he's so squishy. If he can't get that ult off, or if he's silenced when his ADC is dying, that also causes rage on the enemy team because they're mad at Zilean for not ulting them. Because that's essentially the reason Zilean exists. He's kind of a worthless champion besides that. A little bit of a lane bully, but pretty worthless. So top lane continues to push, and I think it was my mistake to not go up there more because Poppy's been coming down and helping us out a lot, and I haven't been helping her out with J4 very much. But we didn't, and she still hasn't lost tower, so J4 wasn't pushing all that hard. We have our ult up in 30 seconds and our flash in a minute and a half, and a lot of times, even though I said to use ult ASAP, if the flash is that quick behind the ult, you might hold on to the ult for the flash just because you can clear so much more ground. It works great for ulting into the enemy backline if you can ult into their front line and then instantly flash into their backline. Right here, you chain CC perfectly in order to secure a kill on him. One of the key things on Fiddlesticks is if you're ganking for a lane that has CC, you establish with them who is going to CC first, because you don't want, obviously, to chain your silence with Malzahar's silence and have them right on top of each other, because you're not maximizing the duration of the CC. My duo mains Malzahar, and I main Fiddlesticks. So when we do it right, and they're silenced by me for 2.5 seconds, they're silenced by him for 3 seconds, and they're feared by me for 2.5 seconds. That's 8-9 seconds where they can't cast a summoner spell, they can't use their ultimate, they can't heal, they can't do anything. And if you chain that properly with other CC, you're a step ahead of the game. And like on that kill on Jarvan just a minute ago, I waited for the duration on Poppy's stun to be over before I used my fear, and Jarvan couldn't move for that long. Right here, I get the Storm Ranger Surge proc on Pantheon, run over and kill Soraka, and almost have time to... If it had been anybody other than Zilean, it would have been a kill too. He's just got too much of a speed boost for that one to work. But that was... right there was a example of the power of Storm Raider Surge on Fiddlesticks. Not to mention, none of the other summoner spells... none of the other keystones, I don't think they're very good on Fiddle. Thunderlords might be okay, and Deathfire Touch might be okay, but his playing pattern is just so much about his ultimate, and the things you can do to help your ultimate are the things you want to do, and one of the main things you can do to help your ultimate is that speed boost coming out of bursting somebody so you can keep up with the rest of the team. I don't usually get my blue buff only on Fiddle because it's so important, and I trust myself more than I trust my mid laner typically, but I had just killed their jungler and just gotten his blue buff, so I gave it to my Malzahar. That Jarvan's just not staying in lane. He pushes the wave and then he bounces, so that Poppy's at least getting the power farm up there since I kind of neglected her for a while. And 20 minutes, Fiddlesticks is great at taking Baron, so around 20 minutes is when you want to start at least leaving yourself open to the possibility, asking your support to ward it up, buy a pink ward and ward it yourself. You can't solo it, but you can easily duo it with your top laner or bring your mid laner up if too many of the enemies show bot. So early Barons on Fiddlesticks, he's one of the best at early Barons, and keeping that in mind if you don't see very many opportunities to gank or take towers is pretty key. There's that Storm Raiders again. Here comes Pantheon, way too late, shouldn't even come in. So this was an example. This was playing against a bad team and carrying. See, now as soon as Zilean ults, we needed to quit worrying about Pantheon because we want that ult to go off before we go on him again, which we did. We backed off while Zilean's ult was up. I ulted into that bush because I knew that Zilean was gonna speed boost himself. So I wanted to get in front of him so I could fear him backwards. It worked perfectly. So we just got 3 kills bot. We could go for a Baron or we could just push hard. And since our other 2 lanes are pushing and we just got a 3-lane ace, instead of wasting the entire time the enemy team is down, everybody trying to get to Baron, resulting in a Baron fight, we get all 3 lanes pushed up, clear bus, clear jungle, so that we can put ourselves in a position to either get the next dragon or start to actually look for a Baron. But it was too early in the game for the whole team to move from 3 lanes to try to converge on Baron. So getting these waves pushed up was definitely the best call in this circumstance. Threshes are always throwing hooks when they shouldn't be. And we could have gotten into some trouble there if I had followed up with him, but he knew to get out. And he had his speed boost. Typically getting Scuttle Crab is pretty important, but I knew the enemy team was all coming up and all collapsing, so we didn't really have time to do Scuttle. Fiddlesticks isn't the worst at Scuttle, but he's not the best. He actually might be the worst. You definitely don't shy away from Scuttle Crabs, especially early because your smite does so much damage. But it's not the fastest thing in the world to take for Fiddlesticks. One of the primary weaknesses I see in Fiddlesticks, given that the other jungler I main is Udyr, he's not good at pushing objectives for himself. He can't push a minion wave fast. His only wave clear is his E, which isn't even wave clear, and it's on a long cooldown, and his autos don't do any damage to towers. So you need to stress to your laners that when you help them out and when you get them a kill in their lane, they need to stick around and push the wave. And you're doing it together to work, but you cannot be counted on to take objectives as Fiddlesticks, at least tower objectives. Right here, I had 4,000 gold on me. I would have easily had a quadra kill if I'd have gone back. And this is, again, like I was saying earlier with the jungle items, his sustain is so good, especially with blue buff, that you often forget how much gold you have on you, and you have so much utility that even without a ton of AP, your ganks are super effective. So I had way too much gold on me there. I bought Zhonya's pretty much outright and bought most of the components for Rylai's in one bag. So I should have been bagged so long before that. And I would have had pretty much the 1v4 quadra kill right there. I'm going Rylai second on Fiddle, which is something kind of new. I used to go Death Cap. But in this age of mobility and dashes and blinks, the Rylai's is really nice, getting that slow off of the drain, off of the ult. It's just more utility on a champion that provides utility, along with a decently high burst of AP. So I've been really on the Rylai's game lately on Fiddlesticks as like a third major item. If the enemy's building a lot of MR, now would be the time to grab a Void Staff. When you have your Runic Echoes, your Zhonyas, your Boots, you can get the Magic Pen out of the way with the Void Staff now, so that because your ganks will be surprisingly ineffective once they start stacking magic resist. But this team wasn't, and actually lately a lot of teams haven't been. So fourth item, after your jungle item, your Zhonyas, your Boots, your fourth item is typically now either going to be Rylai's or Void Staff, and that's just a situational call. I'm not convinced about Leandry's on Fiddle. I haven't done it enough to say definitively, but I typically like to go... If I go Rylai's here, then I go Void Staff next, almost no matter what. Even if they don't have magic resist, it's nice to be doing pretty much true damage. And then you can round it off with a Death Cap. The Death Cap is nice. It's so expensive, and it's just... The percent is nice, but you're doing so much damage at this point anyways, and it's just kind of I guess it's a win harder item that you're definitely free to get. And I kind of debate between it and Rylai's often, but I'm really loving the utility off of Rylai's right now. The tether range on the drain is so high that getting Rylai's and getting a 40% slow on that drain, so they're stuck in it even longer, is just really too nice to pass up right now. So Baron call right here, like I said, Fiddlesticks is really good at Baron. I prefer to have a blue buff because of how quickly we run out of mana draining it, but we had enough damage here and enough people collapsing it that I was comfortable doing it. So one thing that a lot of people do, man, it's what NA is notorious for throwing at Baron, is they don't come off the Baron soon enough when they see the enemy team coming. And with how low we are, if we'd have stayed on that Baron like a lot of teams do, we would have been aced, and we would have put the enemy team right back in the game. So I get greedy here, and I hate my blues being taken. It's like my pet peeve is my blues being taken by the enemy team. So I really wanted to fight over this blue buff. I have an ult up in 15 seconds. I really wish it had been up right here because that's like a perfect spot for it. But we got Jarvan's Mob Mortius off, which is nice, and Zillion's ult. So even though we're all low, this team fight's actually going really well for us. My ult is finally up, so I'm looking for a spot to use it in. They kind of know I'm around. I'm trying to trap the J4, but it's kind of dangerous with me being below half health. See the enemy team while going back, so I'm going to run in there and try to catch one of them, but I'm pretty sure they all get back before I can, and then I think I'd make a dumb decision and stay too long here. Yeah, so I think I can kill Jarvan. Little did I know Zillion was still there behind him, so that was bad by me. And I was stunned, so I couldn't Zonia's. We have our mid lane pushing in hard, and Soraka's not going to hold that thing off. So we're about to... What a little map pressure we've lost is coming back. We have a huge wave stacking bot and mid push again. So this Baron is going to be free to us here pretty quick. Outside of the Mob Mortiuses, they're pretty squishy. But like I said, after Rylai's, you kind of just want to get the Void Staff out of the way. Everybody gets attracted by the 100-plus AP items, but Void Staff is so important if the enemy has MR. You just... And again, if it's like this team where they don't have a ton of MR, you get to the point where you're pretty much doing true damage. And believe it or not, in a lot of situations, a Void Staff will actually make the enemy team melt faster than a Death Cap. So we're just getting all these waves pushed out again. Bot lane's kind of pushing back into us. I don't know the timer on Dragon off the top of my head. I knew it in the game. But I think I was greedy for a blue buff since they took mine. I wanted revenge to take theirs. We kind of lose focus here, and I think this is one of the problems in low elo, is after we received an advantage, we have Malzahar top by himself, I'm running off to do a blue buff, and we have waves pushing into their base, and we're not grouping and taking advantage of it. So I am not in a good place here. There's no reason for me to be here. If I'm taking Dragon, that's fine. I need to do it fast and get to the team, and let them know not to fight without me. Which I'm pretty sure I'll do, ask them not to. But I'm just really wasting time here because I could be top ulting into the middle of them and winning the game. So this is definitely a thing that I need to work on, and one of the reasons I think I'm a little bit lower elo, just because I lacked focus to put the pedal to the metal when the game should be over. Like, we probably have a 6,000 or 7,000 gold difference right now, and we're not just putting our foot on their throat and ending it. So right here, we're pinging to group bot so we can get that bot tower down. There's nothing to do mid. That's another thing a lot of people do, is group mid. And there's nothing we can do mid unless we ace them and bring a minion wave in. We just need to whittle away on the ends of their, on the end of their base. So here we go. Yeah. There's the Rylai's. You see the AoE slow on the Rylai's and the speed boost from Storm Raiders. So that was actually what I said we shouldn't do by going mid. It worked because I got the good ult off and we aced him mid. And so that worked out that time. I just needed to group a little faster. But that's Fiddlesticks, guys. A situational item on him would be Abyssal Scepter. If they have AP, Abyssal Scepter works really well with his passive because Fiddlesticks is a fairly weak passive. It's nice early, but it falls off. 10 magic resist late is nothing. But the Abyssal ups it to 30, which is great for early and mid game, cutting 30 magic resist off. So that's one of the situational items you can build on him. Other than that, it's probably a fairly core build right there. We look at the damage, and led in damage, which is nice out of the jungle. Even a carry jungle, you don't always lead in damage. So I was definitely exerted my pressure early. It just fell off with the pressure late. And I think I try to work around my ult too often there. So that's a Fiddlesticks game, guys. That's my first Fiddlesticks commentary. I think I'll do a whole series on Fiddlesticks. Again, maybe some bad games, maybe some games where the enemy team is high AD or high AP, and just kind of show my way of playing Fiddlesticks. Right now in Season 6, I'm at a 70% win rate, 77% win rate with a 6-to-1 kill-to-death ratio. So I think I know what I'm talking about on him. I think once I get my game sense up there a little bit more, you'll see me climb the ladder, the ELO ladder. But as far as champion mastery is concerned and knowing a champion, I have thousands of games on Fiddlesticks, so I know how the champion plays. And I think that even some higher ELO players could take something away from it. So thank you for watching this video. Give it a like if you learned something. Feel free to leave comments, giving me feedback on the video or how to do it better, and subscribe if you like what you see. We'll be working on some highlight videos and some more of these VODs in the coming days. We're going to stay away from the Udyr ones because I learned Udyr from Trick, and Trick is Trick, and I don't need to go there. If you want to learn Udyr, find him. And again, thanks, guys.